I used a random trait generator to come up with the arrogant, foolish, and brave character traits and used it to create this character. And now I'm going to be showing you what you need to include in a character sheet. The first thing you're going to need to include in a character sheet is a walk cycle, and then a collection of different facial expressions depending on what you need the character to be able to do, and then you need to make what's called a turnaround of the character. So first you block in the shapes of the character, then you add the details, and then lastly you ink the character. When inking, just try and make sure that you really choose, if you've got several sketchy lines that you tried out before you drew something, commit to one of those lines in your inking, or better yet, go over those lines with a more detailed version of what you came up with. So for instance, my arrogant, foolish character walks around in a Speedo all day because he wants to show off his very muscular bod. So I'm adding things like pectoral muscles and the Speedo and kind of a muscular butt and a strong jawline. These are the things that I'm adding in as I ink. Now, one of the benefits to drawing a character sheet is it forces you not just to draw the character in a lot of different positions, but it also forces you to get used to drawing that character and bringing them to life. So if you do later need to add in a different pose or a different expression or a different position, it's going to be easy to draw that character. It also gives you an idea of what detail level you're comfortable with your character. If you're taking weeks or months to draw a character for my class at Perth Amboy High School, I'm going to say that you're adding too much detail to your character and you need to go simplify. So the idea is you're getting the character's personality across in as few lines as possible. So the other rule when you're inking in your character is you have to close all your lines. You may need to go back and close all the lines later, but we're going to be using the magic wand tool and selecting areas to fill when we color. So it is important that you don't use those sort of short, sketchy lines in your final inking. You need to create solid lines and they need to form closed shapes. So the short, sketchy lines, that has to be in the pencil phase of your drawing. The other thing is, if the character is going to turn completely around, why did I just draw him facing right and 3/4 right? Don't I need to draw him facing the other way as well? No, because you can do a horizontal flip when you're in Photoshop or Photopea. So you don't need to draw him facing left because you're going to be just using the same digital character and flipping him around. So it's important to use a Sharpie or other sort of waterproof permanent marker because it won't smear when you erase it. And now that I'm done with my turnaround and my walk cycle, I'm going to explore the facial expressions that he's going to need to use. Now notice that I draw the egg shapes the same size as each other, but then I superimpose them with details like his strong jawline and his distinct angular nose. So I've decided I need a surprised look because I'm going to be throwing a lot of difficult things to challenge this character. I'm going to need sort of a cringe when he messes up because he's arrogant, but he's also not very bright, so I'm sure he messes up a lot. So he's got a cringe. So you need to sort of envision your story as you're doing this. I'm guessing that he's going to be a little frightened sometimes because as brave as he is, I'm going to be trying to really challenge him. And then I figure eventually he's going to get sort of a determined look on his face as he powers through a difficult problem. And I figure that when he's flying, he's really going to have that determined look on his face. So it's like a little bit of a frown, but it's also that he's thinking and he's, really trying to show his stuff. So now I'm going to ink it in, and of all those little sketchy lines, I'm going to pick the best ones, or I'm going to superimpose a final line on top with a little more detail. You don't want to get bored while inking as if you're just tracing over the lines. So think of inking as the final step in bringing a character to life. So notice I'm not using all those short sketchy strokes anymore. Now I'm making his distinct chin, and I'm, choosing a final line of all the many that I put underneath there in pencil. The pencil lines get erased later. Now I used TurboScan, which is a app that I pay for on my phone in order to scan these characters when I was done drawing them. TurboScan works best if your lines are done in black, and as you can see, I see ghost lines of the pencil lines underneath. It works a lot better if you erase the pencil when you're done. Using a permanent marker such as a Sharpie is highly useful because it won't smear when you erase it. So a turnaround, a walk cycle, and varying facial expressions, plus all his iconic poses, that's what you need in a final character sheet. The idea is to have enough poses drawn so that when you go ahead and do your storyboard, you can just draw from the poses you already drew, drop your characters into the settings you create, and focus when you're storyboarding on the story and not necessarily on redrawing the character over and over again, since you've already done that part.